Hey, the group chat is just you guys.
Welcome back to the Future of Money Online Summit. My name is Richard Tabinger with Conscious Marketer and co-producer of the event. Welcome to our talk today. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from Jor Law, the founder of Verify Investors. And he's going to be talking to us about funding through accredited investors. Now, we have two other talks today that you'll want to know about. At 4 p.m. Pacific time, please tune in to Fred Thiel. This is Peter Thiel's brother, and he's going to be talking to us on the Internet of Things and the digital transformation of companies and industries. And then we're going to close today out at 7 p.m. Pacific time. This is Nick Hollick, the Thrillionaire Entrepreneurial Alchemist. He's a civilian astronaut, extreme adventure. He's a keynote speaker. And I met Nick about 3 years ago. He's an incredible being. You're going to want to see this. And he also has a new book out that's hitting the bestseller list 5-day weekend. So tune on for Nick. Then at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're going to be on with Ke Su, who will be joining us live from China. She's the founder of a platform called Ono. That's going to be exciting. Let me ask you a quick favor. Below this video or wherever you're watching it, please share this. It really helps us to get this summit out to as many people as possible. A lot of the talks are free. And without further delay, let me introduce you to Roger Bryant. He is the founder of Digital Currency Index. Take it away, Roger. Have a great interview.
Thank you. Now, everyone, before we start, I need to share a disclaimer. The content of this summit is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide any specific tax, accounting, legal, or other investment advice or provide the basis for any financial or investment decisions. You should always consult with a licensed professional to seek advice specific to your own situation. Now, let's get going. Welcome back to the Future of Money, the world's largest online cryptocurrency summit. I'm Roger Bryant. I'm an investor and the founder of Digital Currency Index and Block Insights. I'm also the co-host and co-producer of this event. For our next presenter, we're going to be talking with Jor Law. Before I introduce him quickly, let me mention that on this page, you'll see a button for the Cryptocurrency Training Kit. This is a special offer during the summit that gets you over 40 hours of talks, 25 plus speaker bonuses, and a program called the Cryptocurrency Mastery Program. The regular price is $497, and you can secure that now for just $297. Check out the link right below this video. It's the most comprehensive training package in the market, so take advantage of that special offer now. Now, let me introduce Jor Law. Jor is a pioneer in building out the ecosystem for digitizing and trading securities on the blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. A corporate finance and securities attorney, he's most well known for his expertise in alternative financing, including EB5, venture capital, crowdfunding, and initial coin offerings, ICOs. He's the co-founder of Verify Investor, the dominant accredited investor verification service in the world, and the founding shareholder of Humir Law PC. He is an expert at attracting and verifying accredited investors. Within the crypto space, he's most passionate about securities regulation affecting tokens, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. Identity for regulatory purposes versus privacy and anonymity, and cross-ledger and cross-chain technologies. A ton of great stuff we're about to cover. Jor is going to be talking to us today about funding through accredited investors. So we're going to be talking about who are accredited investors, how to legally raise capital from them, and how the hell do you find them? And at the end of the talk, we'll let you know how you can access some important free resources from Jor. He's actually pumped that up to 2. I think he's the only speaker giving away 2 bonuses, which I think is badass. So make sure you stick around to the end of the call. Jor, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for the intro.
Oh, no, thank you for being here. So before we dive into your topic, we're asking everyone that speaks at this event to share their perspective on one question. How do you think crypto will influence the future of money and the world? What's your perspective?
This is large. You know, I think a lot of people say that crypto and blockchain technology will change everything that we do. And I'm not so sure that I agree with that. You know, it's, not everything has to be decentralized and, go onto a decentralized ledger technology. But in the financial markets, there are a lot of reasons why decentralized technologies and crypto could really revolutionize how things are being done. For larger companies and larger institutions, it might make things more efficient. It might make things more transparent. That's a possibility. And there's a lot of inefficiencies. Something like crypto and decentralized ledger technology can really make a difference.
And we're going to dive into a little bit more about that.
Did I get cut out?
You had a little bit of choppiness there. So, I mean, we'll give it just another second. If it stays like that, we might say go voice only. Let's start with, who are accredited investors? What is an accredited investor?
So there's a legal definition of it, but in a nutshell, it's investors who are rich enough or sophisticated enough to make investments that non-accredited investors cannot make, because they need, the law views them as needing less protection, right? And they could be individuals, or they could be entities, financial institutions, etc. Looking just at individuals right now, right? How many are there, right? The SEC estimated $1.87 trillion dollars were raised, through accredited investors in 2015, and $1.68 trillion dollars in 2016. So that's a pretty big number. And then there's another report that comes out every few years, called the Survey of Consumer Finances. And there's a website called Don't Quit Your Day Job. They took this Survey of Consumer Finances, ran some, algorithms and studies on it, and they derived essentially that, from the 2016 survey, there were 126 million American households, of which 12.4 million qualified as an accredited investor. Now, really interestingly, out of that 12.4 million households that qualified as accredited investor thresholds, 11.3 million of them qualified on net worth alone. So only about 1 million of them had to qualify on income because they couldn't qualify on net worth. Now, these numbers are interesting. So they basically show roughly 10% of American households are accredited investors. What they don't really tell us is, how much of the entities are accredited investors. And obviously the entities are the ones making, bigger and more investments.
From a technical perspective, when you talk about net worth, to be an accredited investor, correct me if I'm wrong, you need to have $1 million in net assets, not including your primary residence. Is that correct?
That's right. As a individual, there are really two primary ways to qualify. Under the net worth method, it's that either you alone or you together with your spouse have income of $1 million, net worth of $1 million, excluding the value of your primary residence.
Perfect. Okay. Now that we know who they are, for those people that are watching this and maybe have a project that they want to fund, how do you legally raise capital from them, like living inside of the regulatory environment that it lives today?
Right. So in the old days, you'd essentially go to your friends and family and hope that they were rich, and then you'd privately solicit, rich folks. You'd go to country clubs, etc., and you try to meet people and you try to sell them. If you couldn't do any of that, or if that took too long, then you'd go and hire, an investment bank. And a broker dealer, and you'd hope that they have a Rolodex of accredited investors that they could reach out to on your behalf, again, privately. Now, a lot of this changed in the recent years with what they call crowdfunding and the Jobs Act legislation in the U.S., which has essentially allowed you to go publicly solicit. Now, what that allowed you to do is, instead of having to be in the network or hire someone that had a network, you could actually now just go crowdfund. You can go generally solicit and advertise for your offering. And people have been doing that reasonably successfully. They've thought about, where are our investors and how can we find them? And some people have done the strategy of where they've just gone shotgun approach and marketed to everybody and then weeded it out to get the 10% that were accredited investors, whereas other people have just gone to areas that have a high percentage of accredited investors, like doctors, lawyers, and engineers, groups like that.
And you kind of started to touch on that. So we know who they are. We know how to legally raise for them. Now, where do we find them? Is it broad stroke marketing there when you filter through to find the accredited investors, or are there specific places that you can go to find them?
Nothing about the new laws changed where rich people hang out, right? The rich people and the sophisticated people, they've hung out where they've always hung out, right? So you have two ways. You can either broadly market, in the very first crowdfunding deal that I invested in that was limited to accredited investors only, they marketed by taking out ads on the sides of buses. So they obviously went and got a lot of non-accredited investors, and they out the non-accredited investors, but they sold out their deal very quickly, right? Alternatively, you can go and you can hunt for places that have accredited investors. Like I said, country clubs. Hold on one second. I'm going to stop my video. Country clubs, doctors organizations, engineer organizations. Their population is likely to be higher. American Express card holders, things like that, right? That's how you can limit it, and then you could target your marketing toward those people.
No, that makes that makes perfect sense, and I appreciate that opinion, and I know that we've talked about this offline in previous conversations because it's an important topic. There are a lot of new ideas in the blockchain and the cryptocurrency space, and there's definitely been some enforcement of regulation that has made it a little bit harder to raise directly from the public if they are not accredited. So if there's someone sitting there today listening to this call, they're getting a basic understanding of what an accredited investor is, where they might be hanging out. Where do they start if they want to raise money? What's the first thing you would recommend if somebody walked up to an event and said, Joe, I want to pitch you this idea. And you're like, well, hold on a second. I want you to go do this first if you're really thinking about raising money. What would be that first thing?
Right now, we're in this funny state where, frankly, a lot of the ICOs that are out there, a lot of the capital raises that are out there, they don't fully make sense. I think, after a period of time, if you're not able to take advantage of this golden age, it kind of resorts back to kind of what we've always been used to. So, you're going to end up having to have a good team. You're going to end up having to have a good project with good token economics. And then ideally, over a period of time, you end up having some skin in the game, some friends and family that believe in you, who you raise money from. And then you have two ways you could, approach it. You can kind of go to the general public, or you can go to private investors. And obviously, there's some sort of beauty in going to the general public because you have a large user base, you have a large fan base. Yeah, they're also very critical when they don't get to participate in deals that, only other people get to participate, but you balance it, right? So, you'll have two ways to raise money. One is you can go to people that have money. And in this space, they're not that hard to find, right? If you're looking for cryptocurrency investors, the whales and the funds, you ask around, you start finding a few of them. Generally, once you find a few of them, if your project is good, they will bring other people to you. It's kind of like if you find, 10 rich folks, they'll know 100 rich folks. So you don't have to know 1,000 rich folks or sophisticated folks. You just need to meet 5 to 10 of them and get them to believe enough that they introduce you to their friends, right? If you don't do that, then you're going to have to crowdfund it. You're going to have to think, strategically about how you're going to crowdfund it and hit, a massive group of people in the hopes that a percentage of them will believe in investing in your project.
Yeah, and I think this has a lot to do with even the way that you start a business is somewhat the same way you raise money. If you need to go out and raise $5 million, that's great. Raise your first 50,000, learn what you can from that, repeat that process, raise your next 50, have those two first investors introduce you to 2 more, then 2 more. And next thing you know, you've got a snowball effect going and you can raise just as much money as you really need with a good project, a good team, good economics behind the business, good strategy for exit, good strategy for growth. If you've got all of those things, you need to have the fundamentals just like any business would. When I've talked to you about some of your background, and we've invested in our fund in over 50 projects, and we're starting to see now that the projects that have done well, the infrastructure projects that have generated massive amounts of capital or massive amounts of revenue after coming to market, that they're making plays on buying other assets in the space or working into the mergers and acquisitions side of the world. Now, I know you have a background in that. what role do you think M&A is going to play in the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency over, say, the next 5 years?
Yeah, M&A is, going to be important. We've already seen it, and I myself had a company, where, we had a exit of some sort. We recapitalized, some of our existing shareholders with a company that, raised a lot of money and wanted a strategic partner. We want a strategic partner, they want a strategic partner, so they made a large investment into us, right? So M&A is interesting, and it's not just M&A where they, control. I think it's also investments, right? When you raise so much money and your end vision is we are going to have this universe in the future, then the math becomes, do we have the energy and time to build all of it out ourselves? Or is it cheaper to just go buy something else? And for a lot of these companies, like frankly, they have a vision and an idea, they don't have anything yet. So, some of them may feel pressure that the sooner we can launch, the better it is, because there's 5 other technologies working on this and we've got to get to market faster, so that, we're not just a white paper with a lot of money. So I think that's why you've been seeing a fair amount of M&A activity, from the lowest levels all the way to the biggest levels, where you see Coinbase making acquisitions left and right and things like that, so that they can execute on their business model or stay relevant in the business.
I like that, and I'm gonna have a follow-up question to that, but I want to post something else first. So I want to talk about equity tokens. Could you explain to the audience what an equity token is, and then what role do you think that they're going to play in the crypto world?
Yeah, equity tokens are going to be big, I think. Before we can really get into that, you have to look at the history of the evolution of tokenization, right? And first off, you kind of had these big decentralized projects, and they started off, as peer projects where people came together and they wanted to see something happen. They all contributed money to create something, right? And then, as human nature would have it, someone looked around and they said, whoa, hold it. There's a lot of money being raised for projects. Why don't I do a project? And then I raise a lot of money. And then why don't I keep some of that money for myself? Right? So you now enter the world of ICOs, where now really you have a lot of people that are doing projects to raise a lot of money, but they're doing it for profit motive, right? They're doing it not always just for the project, but also to get rich. And that's when you kind of realized what the SEC and other regulators realized, which is that many of these ICOs, they are actually just investment capital raises. It's someone that's raising money, from the public, suggesting to the public that they're going to make money if they invest, and then they're taking the money, building something, and therefore the tokens are worth more money. So, these days, that's done, largely through investment contracts in the sense that you give me this money and I will give you this token, and the value of this token is likely going to increase because it's tied to the value of this project. Now, the next evolution is going to be a company that just says, well, hold it. Why don't I just give you equity in my company? And then you'll get a upside of my company in every project that I do within my company. And that's also being fueled by many investors. Many investors are now saying, well, I don't just want the tokens. I don't want just, the project. I want the company behind it as well. So you got those two forces driving it. And then you start looking at, well, what is equity, right? I form a company in Delaware, let's say, and I issue out paper stock certificates and I mail them out to you. And then when I need to get them back, maybe you've lost them, maybe you haven't, but it's hard to keep track of, especially when I'm a small private company. But wait, hold it. Delaware allows me to digitize my stock certificates. So why don't I just issue my stock certificates out as tokens, easier to manage, easier to track, easier to trade, etc. Now, there are a whole slew of issues with tokenized equity, but you can see this evolution of how something that was done one way is now becoming obsolete. Just much like bookkeeping, right? Once upon a time, you go out and you buy, double ledger accounting worksheets and you do everything by hand and calculator. and then the spreadsheet came out, and then the computers came out, and now you don't go buy the calculator. You use a calculator, built into the spreadsheet or on your computer, and you use Excel or some equivalent to do the same accounting, or you use software. But almost nobody uses paper anymore. And I think you see that sort of evolution happening with equity and why it might get tokenized, just because it's better technology.
No, I totally agree with that. And it's part of a project that we're working on. It's part of the way that we invest now when we're looking to participate in projects. We want equity or we want debt in the projects or a combination of the two. The question is, how soon do you think we'll see equity tokens on the market? Is it a 2018 thing, 1920? Do you have any idea?
Well, it's already happened, right? Even last year, you had companies come out and effectively give equity. It just hasn't happened, on a mass scale because, let's face it, right now, when you're trying to tokenize, there aren't that many people that know how to do it. So it takes a few months to do it. You've got to go hire an engineering team. You've got to go hire lawyers who are overpriced and take too long. And many months later, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, you've got now a tokenized vehicle that you can do. But so some people have done it. There's nothing stopping you from saying, here's my equity, I'm going to tokenize it now, and then going out. The trick is, one, are you doing it correctly? Are you thinking of all the issues that could happen because you're trying to take law and technology in a new area? Nobody knows, where the gaps are necessarily, all of them, right? You're trying to do that. And then at the same time, we need to come up with a system that kind of lowers the price and time and everything. And there are a number of companies working on this. For example, Harbor, which is very interesting. Verify Investors planning to work with them. Harbor is going to take real estate funds or real estate projects and create a vehicle by which any developer can come and tokenize it, probably without really needing their own engineers to create the tokens and things like that, right? So they're one group that's doing it. Securitize, which has made a big splash in the marketplace with their marketing, just last week released a white paper on what a securities protocol would look like with them. And then I advised a company called Polymath, and Polymath has an active GitHub and kind of some blogs on how to use their technology. And the dream there, of course, with all of these folks is that anyone can come without the knowledge of how to tokenize. They just need to know their business, and they can create a token within like 30 minutes, assuming they had the right legal guidance, etc. And once you have something like that, then I think it hits the community en masse. And I think that comes later this year. Harbor's supposed to have something in the summer, a live deal. Polymath might have a live deal in Securitize already has live deals, but not through their protocol, which I'm not sure how long that will take.
So for someone that's sitting there with a project that wants to launch an equity token, are there certain things that they should be thinking about right now? Like from the perspective of, should they just wait for more of this to get figured out? Should they go with one of these organizations that you're talking with, and although it might take them a couple months, get there? Or are there things that they could be doing to get to market now?
If you wait, you miss out on being the early mover and early adopter and the benefits that could take, that could have. And some of the benefits might be that you'll be among the first to kind of get the dollars that go in there. And those dollars are probably looking for those types of deals, more interested in those types of deals. You might have an easier time raising money, especially when you're first among the industry where everyone wants to advertise that they're working on these things. So I predict that the deals that are first will get press coverage. Partners will, market them for them. Marketing will be significantly easier if you're among the first. Now, on the flip side, if you're among the first, you're among the first to find out where the problems are too, right? That also means things are usually more expensive, slower for you. You're inventing the wheel. You might make a mistake. That mistake might be illegal. It might not be illegal. So those are things to think about. Now, there are ways to maybe have your cake and eat it too. You may be able to kind of come up with documentation that says that you will tokenize, or you build all the framework for tokenizing, but you just wait until tokenizing becomes more practical, easier, less expensive, and then you kind of convert your equity into tokens later. Alternatively, you can tokenize, but the tokens, the legal language, drafts the tokens such that they're not really the true equity. They're just representative tokens. And your paper equity still controls. Or you can just go straight down the path to tokenizing, but try to have certain functions represented by the tokens, but not all functions represented by the tokens. All very good questions, because there definitely is a gap between what like a company could do by law and what the limitations of a smart contract are.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I feel like we could dive down that rabbit hole even deeper. But I'm going to pull it back a second, because you mentioned a couple different organizations or companies that you are working with that you serve as an advisor to. Can you tell the audience about some of the things that you're working on these days, or things you're looking to work on in the future?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this idea that securities laws are scary. Tokenizing securities seems like a no-brainer. It's superior technology to what we have today to track and trade securities. So I'm very interested in dropping the costs and making it easier for people to tokenize, so that everybody in the financial world can tokenize and benefit from it, right? So I'm very interested in that. To that end, I've been very active in helping people kind of further that discussion along. I do officially, consult with Polymath, of course. But the ideas that I share, I share at conferences, I share with other thought leaders, like yourself. We've had many chats about this stuff. I run 2 tokenization groups, one on Facebook called Tokenization, and one on LinkedIn called Tokenization of Securities. And it's dedicated to this idea that everything can be tokenized, and that we all have to work together right now. So I'm very, very excited to see how Harbor Securitize, all these folks come and do this. And I'm going to be supportive, if at the very least, just by being a market participant in the platforms and ecosystems they create, and hopefully more kind of educating them and consulting and sharing whatever information I learn with them. So that's one avenue. Another avenue is this idea of tokenization. One of the primary appeals is that it makes it easier to trade and to exchange and to get liquidity, which forever has plagued private securities, right? If you had a private security, it was restricted, but even after restrictions lifted, you really couldn't trade it because you didn't know where to trade it. And it'd be difficult to trade. But with token technology and the market that has adopted, where that there is actually a worldwide population of people that are interested in buying tokens, and you can build in restrictions on tokens so that they can trade legally. That's very interesting, but that's only interesting if you have places to trade them. So I've been active in working with and doing thought leadership around exchanges and regulated exchanges, so that things are done legally, so that all of us can enjoy the benefits of trading securities without wondering if that whole roller coaster ride is going to shut down. So Verify Investor is a subsidiary of tZERO. So obviously I'm helping tZERO with that sort of thing right now. But again, it's one of those areas where we're very collaborative, or at least I'm very collaborative, but I think tZERO is as well. I'm friends with Open Finance, I'm friends with CoinList, so it's one of those things where I think all of us are going to come together and work together to kind of create a better future for the entire industry.
Yeah, and I know that I have a personal appreciation for the work that you're doing and the information that you've shared with myself and our team as we work through some of the projects that we either invest in and or the projects that we're bringing to market ourselves, just to get an idea of what's going on in the macro landscape of the environment, which you're very heavily plugged into. You've been talking about this tokenization. And there's two camps in that space, and I'd love to hear which camp that you're in. There's kind of like the camp that says that we're going to live in a tokenized economy where there's many different tokens, or we're going to live in an economy where it's dominated by a single token or coin. Which camp do you live in? Like, where do you pitch your tent?
I definitely don't think that there's kind of one token that rules them all. That's just not. It's not indicative of how society works. It's not indicative of how the human nature is. That would be like saying something like there's going to be one currency for the entire world. Like €1 for the entire system. And over a period of time, as human nature is, someone will think that no, I want something that's my own, or I think this is better. Or that's great, but I'm going to Brexit and leave. So even among kind of just currency, I don't think you'll see a single token. But when you think about the idea that every company is going to tokenize themselves because they have something to track, or every game is going to tokenize themselves because it's easier for them to track the currency within their game, then obviously those tokens would have to be unique, right? Like Apple and Microsoft are not going to have like the same token. Now, they could if you kind of tied it all to one master token, but ultimately it's just semantics there. They'd still ultimately have their own tokens, really. So I don't see any scenario where it's one token rules the whole world.
Okay, awesome. One of the last questions before we get into the two free gifts that you have for everybody that's listening is one of the goals that myself and my partner John Tarr have is bringing more of Main Street into this new economy, or this new opportunity to create wealth and invest in projects that are changing the landscape of every industry, from finance to insurance to healthcare. What do you think the industry needs to do, either from a regulatory perspective or from a productization, or a tokenization perspective, to bring more of the rest of the world into this industry so that it's not all the early adopters, the tech nerds, Wall Street, and things like that?
Yeah, this is actually an area I'm pretty passionate about. It's ridiculous that, like a analyst, that is not an accredited investor can go and, start advising other people on how to invest their money when they can't even invest it themselves, right? So there's certainly some flaws with this sort of thinking. And, as the kind of operator of Verify Investor, Verify Investor probably benefits more from verification of accredited investors than anyone else in the world, right? But it doesn't make sense. Like, we're in a business that like we shouldn't be in because the law shouldn't require verification. It's designed to protect investors from themselves, but really it doesn't protect investors from themselves. So I've actually been highly critical of this, verification need. And then that goes along broader to why is this divide from the rich and, quote unquote, sophisticated versus the ones that are not. And, to be fair, I think that divide is necessary at the moment, because I think if this industry or any industry has, tens of thousands of, Main Street folks that go and complain to their their senators, et cetera, and say, oh, we lost money in this, they scammed us, or they lost money in this, then any industry would shut down. So what we really need is a system of, a different cultural framework, mindset, and education. So if Main Street investors can be taught that, hey, investing is good, saving is good, but when you invest, you really have to understand these key concepts of investing, right? Basic financial literacy courses that you and I probably never took when we were growing up, right? If we could get some sort of cultural shift where when I lose money, I think, was I just making a poor investment decision, or did I really get scammed? And if I just made a poor investment decision, I don't go and sue and I don't complain, et cetera, then I think you can take this divide out. But until that period, I think it's important to keep that divide, because you do have a need to protect people from themselves, not necessarily just to protect them from themselves, but also to protect companies from those people that are going to just come invest, lose money, and immediately go sue you when really you've done nothing wrong and they've done most of it wrong.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. There's an element of personal responsibility. And I'm thinking through a lot of the conversations that we've had around this summer, or this summit, from traders who are talking about that, like, even when you, most investors lose money, like in the trading space, like 90% of traders lose money on the Main Street. 70% of even Wall Street traders lose money as an aggregate over time. So there's an element of personal responsibility that you have to understand when you're doing that. And I'm not saying that these are your opinions. These are a little bit of mine, but I do want to take away from what you said, that element of personal responsibility, that element of understanding what you're doing, having rules around what you're going to invest in. And then even when you hit all of those rules exactly right, there's still a chance that you lose money because of external factors. It could be the best team, the best product, but somebody else could beat them to market. Regulation could come in and could dramatically change their ability to generate revenue. And if you as an investor can't take the personal responsibility to understand the ebbs and flows of that market, it's hard. And then someone like Tim Draper, who was talking about the other day, where there is kind of an unfair advantage here. If you're a millionaire, it's easy to make millions of dollars more because you have access to so many different opportunities. If you're a college or somebody that's graduated a college a year ago and makes $50,000 a year, lives at home with your parents, and has a zero cost basis on your life, you could afford to put $5,000 into a project. And if you lost it all, it wouldn't be a detriment to your life. Why can't you have the same opportunity? So I do believe that, like no other time in this regulated environment, there is at least a conversation going about, can we change this a little bit to level the playing field or give access to more opportunity to more people? I don't know how to work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening already. Honestly, we're taking steps there. The Jobs Act that came out, a period, just a few years ago, opened up opportunities to non-accredited investors that were never available before. And I think it's just going to be a comfort thing. It's one of those things where I think if yesterday none of these people could invest, and then today they all can, that's probably too sudden of a shift. So I think we're moving in the right direction. And over a period of time, I think people will realize that people need to get educated about these things, and those courses will come out. And on top of that, people realize that, hey, it's not that bad. We can loosen these laws a little bit. So, the goal, of course, one day would be to not have any sort of divide. Because right now it is a little bit of a double standard, right? Like, we tell the common person, like, they can go and eat McDonald's and Snickers, bars, and, that could have a detrimental health effect on them. And they're grown up enough to take that risk themselves. But then they're not grown enough to take a financial risk themselves. And where I'd like to get to would be something like, if I eat a Snickers, or if I go to McDonald's and I eat something and it's bad for me, well, that's my problem for like not being careful. If McDonald's or Snickers like lies and they say, hey, come eat us, we're healthy, we have like, no calories, etc., we're not using fats, but they turn out to be doing that, well, then there's fraud. There's a reason for me to go sue. Otherwise, it's my personal choice. I have to take personal responsibility for that. Right now, I feel like in securities, anytime anyone loses money, it's almost, the mentality is like, oh, someone committed fraud on me. I need to go sue. And we need to move away from that mentality because it's a little bit too extreme one direction right now.
I love it. Now, in a second, I'm going to tell everyone about George's 2 gifts that he's offering. You notice I said 2. But before I do that, I'd like to remind everyone that you can own this entire training summit through the Cryptocurrency Training Kit. This gets you the downloadable access to the videos, audios, transcripts. Those transcripts are going to be over 2,000 pages of content. And there's bonus gifts from all 35 plus speakers, all for only $297. You'll also get a special bonus called the Crypto Mastery Program that we are putting together right now. After the summit, the price of this training program will go to $497. So if you'd like to own the materials and refer back to them at your convenience, now is the time. Now, Joy, I'd love for you to share some more information about the bonus gifts that you have. The first one being the Jobs Act crowdfunding matrix. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Jobs Act crowdfunding matrix is something we designed. There's various versions of this out in the marketplace, and the SEC has something similar to it. But it's just kind of a handy, infographic that shows kind of the difference between various Jobs Act exemptions for someone that's raising their money. It's a really nice cheat sheet for you to kind of go and take a quick look at, which exemption might I be interested in, and what are the key rules to those exemptions. And over time, we'll update it as the laws do kind of keep changing.
Awesome. I appreciate it, because I know there's a ton of people out there that are thinking about projects they want to raise capital for, and this will definitely be a big help for them. And I know your other gift, which you put together like 5 minutes before this call, we're sitting here trying to talk about like hiking and projects, and you're like, don't worry, I can multitask, and you're setting up a special coupon code for everyone. And it's a discount to Verify Investor, correct?
Yeah, so Verify Investor, it does accredited investor verifications. If you're an issuer, you may need it to verify your investors. Most of the ICOs that are out there, generally soliciting to the U.S. investors, probably do need it. If you're an investor, you may be asked to get verified. So Verify Investor historically does not really give out public codes. But we decided to set one up for Future of Money folks. So we set up a coupon code. The promo code is Future of Money, all one word, and it will give you 10% off your order. It's usable for 100 times, that particular promo code, over the course of the next year. And I think that Roger's also going to post a link somewhere.
Yeah, our team's going to post a link to that. And like one of the things that he said is it's only open to the first 100 users. So if you're watching this video and you'd like to get your investor certification or accreditation letter, I am a Verify Investor client. I've been for a while now. And I know when I'm trying to participate in projects that require verification, which is almost all of them now, when I send them over that simple letter that comes from Verify Investor, it really eliminates a lot of questions and a lot of extra forms that I might need to fill out. And also, when I'm trying to get into projects where there's competition, where people are trying to get into it, and this is my own personal opinion, this isn't the opinion of Verify Investor or Jor, when I send them over that letter, they see that I'm serious, they know that I'm a player, and they'll get back to me really quick about whether or not there's an opportunity to get in. Again, my personal opinion. Jor, I want to thank you so much for being here. And on behalf of the Future Money Summit team, we would all like to thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience today. And again, I always appreciate the conversations that we have and the insight that you give our team on the different things that you're doing and things that we're working on. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being who you are. And you're such a great human being. So thank you.
No, thank you, Roger, for always making me feel welcome.
Perfect. Well, Jor, we appreciate you. For everyone else, our next call will be coming up, I believe, in, 15 minutes. I know we got a slam-packed day today. Let me take a quick look. And I don't know, Richard, if you're on, if you want to hop in and let everybody know what's coming up next.
4 p.m. Pacific time, we've got, get the schedule out here. Fred Thiel at 4 p.m. Pacific time. He's going to talk on the Internet of Things and the digital transformations of companies and industries.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I always get confused because I'm East Coast time and you guys run everything on Pacific time. I think you did it just to screw with me. So everyone, thank you. We will see you on the next call. Peace.